Have you ever wondered how your favorite container goes from concept to reality? Well, today we're going behind the scenes. You won't want to miss it, so stay tuned as we garden smart in Georgia.
These moments of beauty and relaxation are brought to you by Proven Winners Flowering Shrubs, where every plant is performance tested, leaving you free to just enjoy. Find our award-winning shrubs at your local garden center.
Bring the outdoors into your everyday life. Bass Pro Shops can outfit all your adventures, even those in your backyard. Bass Pro Shops, your adventure starts here.
DRAM has been providing gardeners with professional equipment for over 75 years. DRAM products feature 9 water patterns and are designed to nurture your plants with a shower of rain. DRAM for lawn and garden, available at garden centers near you.
You have to rely on your gear. The way it feels, the way it does exactly what you need it to do. The F-Pace, how Jaguar makes an SUV.
Container gardening dates back thousands of years as our ancestors sought to bring their favorite edible and ornamental plants closer to home and provide desirable plants a hospitable environment to thrive. Containers give us the ability to have tropical plants in cold climates year-round, as well as a pathway for turning a small courtyard or deck into a garden oasis. Almost anything can double as a plant container, and there's almost no limit to the possibilities. Perhaps some of the most elegant are the classic ceramic containers that marry old world charm with elements of modern design. Today we meet a master in the field of container design. Michael Carr spent the past 2 decades in the business of designing and building beautiful containers for gardens across the U.S. and well beyond. He's launched over 2,000 unique designs in that time, and his annual catalog features more than 60% new offerings. He's traveled the world to find the best partners to build these beautiful creations. His world is an amazing blend of business and artist, and today we have the pleasure of getting behind the scenes to look into the magical world of containers. Michael, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Eric. I appreciate it, man. I'm really happy to see you guys here. Yeah.
Wonderful.
It's great.
Containers for me are one of the most exciting elements in the garden. There's so many possibilities from a range of colors, designs, and also I love the flexibility that containers offer us. Even if you have a limited space, there's something you can do with a container. Little small patio, courtyard, and even in giant garden settings, it gives us the opportunity to have fun with, say, tropical plants that are not, hardy in our area. And containers is what makes all that possible. And of course, this is your life now, and it's not a very common life path. My curiosity here is, how did you get into it?
You know, I was not one of those guys that went to college and was able to tell that counselor, this is what I want to do, and put me in this path. And, the counselors want to pin you down and what's your major, what do you want to do? I was not one of those guys. I saw the whole world. There was a lot of things I wanted to experience and all. I just didn't want to be pigeonholed. So, even when I got out of college, I didn't know. I had a business degree because it was broad. I could do a lot of different things, and I did a lot of different things, enjoyed them, but it got old quick because I enjoyed the business of selling and stuff, but the actual part of the job I didn't. And then, a couple of years down the road from there, I remembered I was thinking I had a really big influence in my life from one coach when I was growing up because I really loved athletics. And he had such an influence on a lot of things that I did. And I wanted to be that for other people. So I wanted to give back a little bit So one day I went ahead and took a test to become went an alternative method so I could teach school and whatnot and be a coach. I wanted to do that for 2 or 3 years just to kind of give back to the kids. And so I actually served 3 terms in politics as well at the same time in the same city. So it was an enjoyable time, but I knew at some point in time it was, okay, ready to move on to the next step. And I had a friend of mine that owned several businesses and he wanted to diversify, and he told me he bought a Mexican pottery company. And I said, good, you know, what does that mean? He said, but I need you to go in there, Mike, and kind of look at it because I don't know a thing about it. And I said, Dan, I don't have a clue either what's going on. But I had one segment of my career where I did a lot of stuff out of Impruneta, Italy. Just cool stuff.
Sure.
Handmade, hand-painted, you know, just cool art pieces and stuff. And it was fun. I still have some myself, right? But, you know, when they're wearing Gucci shoes and, you know, things like that for the people working in the factory becomes kind of expensive. So you got to keep your eye on where people, where you still have to take it to the market, I guess is what I'm saying. Sure. You know, it's not just an artist, it's also a business guy. So you got to make it work both ways.
And there's a lot behind the scenes in the world of containers that we don't see when we go to our, you know, our local garden center and, you know, trying to find just the right thing for a plant we just bought. From the design standpoint, you know, you've come up with this brilliant idea of this new container that's going to be, you know, something special for a year or two from now. You then have to get it made. And so your partners on that side of the equation are very, very important in taking your vision and your ideal of the perfect container and then turning it into a reality that is high quality, it's going to be durable. Talk to me through the process of finding that partner and how that works.
Well, I'll tell you this. It doesn't just make a phone call and make it happen.
Sure.
I've probably been to Vietnam more than 50 times, 2 or 3 weeks at a time. But I remember landing in that old airport in Vietnam, 23-hour flight, just landed. I know how far away I am from home, right? And I'm going, what in the world have I just got into, right? Go into customs and they're all soldiers. Nobody smiles, nobody does nothing. You know, you can't even make them smile. But I got through the customs and all of a sudden I meet the people and they're all smiling and they're just, you know, they have beautiful souls and stuff. And I've loved it ever since I did that. But I found this group of people, it's a family business. They're in their 4th generation. Great-great-granddad came over from China with the techniques and stuff to make pots and bricks and stuff. And, you know, right now the generation I'm dealing with is two brothers are running it. They just find educated, smart people, and they're driven to build their name. The name is an important thing. And so we've been doing business, I don't know, many years.
Wow.
And they're like family to me. And it was quite a pleasure to finally find that piece of gold.
Michael, it seems to me in the world of containers, there are 2 basic schools of thoughts, or the way that they think about what they're doing on an annual basis. They're the ones that make the very traditional, conventional, almost like old world containers. They offer 30 different things, and that doesn't change that much. That's definitely not what you're doing.
No.
And there's, of course, hundreds and hundreds of designs in your career that you've come up with. Why did you feel the need to move in that direction?
My very first year in business, when I was doing the Mexican clay, I went to my first show in Atlanta, Georgia, at what's called the GardenSMART, and we sold so much stuff. What I thought was so much stuff back then, you know, for a little small guy. And we sold more than I could make. We actually could not make enough to sell, to produce all that. So I'm thinking, wow, we've got a winner here. So here we come back to the next show the next year, and people walk up to me and they go, so what's new? And I'm thinking, what do you mean what's new? Everything we had last year, we couldn't get enough of it. You loved it. And they just walked on down the road.
Wow.
So I said, okay, the light came on again. This can't happen. So there and I went and started making some new stuff and brought it back. And all of a sudden they came in and what's new? And right here they go again. But more impactful than that was years later, I think I had probably 40, 50-page catalog with all these different items, and I thought they were so cool. And I had been trying to get a customer for a couple of years, multiple stores and whatnot, big, known in the business, and got the business. She bought a couple of containers for her stores, 40-foot containers, lots of pots. And I went to her open house when the pots had arrived and planters and laid out, and they had tons of people in. And she said, Mike, everything looks great. I love it. Just want to let you know, in 2 years, though, I'm swapping to somebody else. And here I go again, just going, this was too difficult to get your business. What do you mean? You're going to go somewhere else? She said, I just always need a new look. And once again, the light comes on. I'm still learning, always learning every day. I said, no. You're not going to have to go somewhere else in 2 years. I will give you the new look. I never want you to have to go away to find a new look.
Right.
And that's where my thought changed completely. It's like I have to create new stuff all the time, which is the most difficult thing I do, but boy, is it the most rewarding. I love that part of it. It's just a challenge of every year I think there's no way I could come up with something else. I mean, we're talking hundreds and hundreds of new things. My catalog's 400 pages, and 50 to 60% of that is new every year. Inspirations they come from everywhere. It could be how the sun's setting on a building. It could be the carpet on the floor, a design of a drape. It could be just something just pops into my head. And sometimes the factory, after so long, we've been working this together. Sometimes they throw stuff at me, and I go, oh, change this or change that. And sometimes it's not only the style of that pot. Sometimes it's texture.
Sure.
Sometimes different colors. I don't know. But that's the fun part, but it's also difficult.
Every person's creative process is a little bit different. And I'm really curious to know how you take that idea, and let's say it is something like the way that the sun is cast on a building, at sunset. How do you take that idea and convert it into a container? Is this something you're sketching on paper, or what's your process?
A lot of times it's on paper, just drawing it. Not a great drawing, but enough to where I can get the idea.
Sure.
And, when I first started, be honest with you, I spent 3 weeks over at the factory just sitting there making molds. I had them in my head I wanted to do, actually doing them myself. And sometimes there's a mold maker there that does it every day, and I'm just kind of guiding him on what it looks like. No, change this and change that. But after this many years and working with the factory I have, we're communicating so well. So it's much easier to transfer the idea.
Yeah, it sounds like a beautiful partnership. So Michael, after your design is complete, there's a whole process that goes into turning that into a reality. And with most of these pots, they start with a mold, right?
Yep, it's a long process. There's a lot of work. That's what I love about this. Everything is made by hand. It's all about, people touch it and do it, the craftsmen, and it's important how talented they are. Yeah, the mold guy, super important. I've always believed, spend the time to make it right the first time.
Right.
The mold is the most important thing. Take your time, get the details. The details for me is so important. It could take weeks. The molds are very expensive to make. Not only do you have a design for one thing, you've got that same thing, you got it for different sizes and so forth, and different types of material for that same type of design elements.
And so with the mold, are they actually carving that design into, what is the material of the mold? Is that like a ceramic or a wood?
It's a plaster.
It is?
It's a plaster. Yeah, we will make, the first one is an absolute sculpture. Okay, so we actually create a sculpture of what we want the piece to look like. Then we pour a mold over, reverse mold over, and that becomes our master mold. For us, it's important because detail and beauty and doing it the right way is so important to me. Is we actually create production molds from the master mold, okay? We always keep that master mold kind of protected and taken care of and so forth. But about every 50 times we use a piece, we create another mold from the master mold.
I know one thing that goes to the bottom of quality in a container is the actual materials that it's made out of. And there are a lot of different options there, whether it's using clay or concrete. Talk about some of the materials you use and how important that is just for the quality and the longevity of the container.
Well, first of all, there's multiple types of clay. For what we do in our pieces, we actually mix 3 different types of clay together.
Oh, wow.
We actually have multiple pieces of machinery at $500,000 a piece to make sure we mix that clay correctly. We actually take it from solids, 3 different types of solid clay, put it into a big, huge vat, runs up a conveyor belt, and it's dumped into these 20-foot, looks like rock tumblers. Then we mix the water with it. We basically turn that clay into a liquid. So we liquefied the clay, it comes through the floor after that point, and then it runs to another piece that's shaking it and sucking out all the impurities. Because remember, it started as clay. It could have been in the river, it could have been on the mountainside or so forth. And then once we pull it out, we want to reconstitute it into a solid, or at least a malleable type of clay. But to do that whole process involves a lot of work and a lot of equipment. For what we do go the extra mile to make sure that that clay creates a beautiful, beautiful piece.
After the clay's been made, talk us through the process of getting it into the mold. How is that packed and prepared?
Once we pull it out of our clay preparation machinery, it comes in little round logs. I say little, pretty big. And then they work it over to the stage where they're putting the clay into the molds. And because quite frankly, they're packing it in. They're pulling off pieces and they're just packing it in, smoothing it off with their hand. It's quite a process to look at. These are craftsmen that's been doing this for many years. They know what they're doing.
Oh, it's incredible. You can see that in their work. There are perhaps hundreds of different colors. And I know in your case, you have over 100 colors and finishes and all these different textures. How do you achieve that? Because of course that goes on before it goes into the kiln, right?
I have over 125 colors. People expect something new all the time, so we're always trying to think, and I'm studying color trends and so forth. 10 to 12 different type of ingredients, and it's not paint ingredient. There are secret things that are put in there. But the bottom line is it takes time experimenting, crushing this up, crushing that up, mixing it. And then it's not just mixing and getting those ingredients, it's also how to apply the glaze. There's different ways we apply the glaze. I know this particular white color that you see right here. 4 or 5 years ago, the whole industry from Vietnam had a white, but it was basically a smoky white, kind of a dirty white. And I had some customers say, can you just make a white? So I started studying and trying to experiment, trial and error, different methods to come up with that pure white. And white is the hottest color in the business right now. So I'm glad we were able to make that happen. But it took us about 3 years to do that. Any new color I'm happy with, right? So I like to offer those different choices to customers.
So after the glaze has been applied, a super important part of the whole process is kilning it. These are not just dried in the sun. They have to be heated to very, very high temperatures to basically make it where this thing's going to last for years.
After we put the clay in the mold, press it in, it has to sit there a couple of days, but the clay has to be so dry at a certain point before you pull the molds or it loses its shape. And then it has to sit there for another couple of days till it dries enough to where we can start putting the glaze on it itself. Once you glaze a piece, you still can't tell the color. So it's really cool once you see it gets to that point where the glaze dries. Years ago, we only had the old world kiln that had basically 30 different chambers going up a hill. Every one of them, it's a separate chamber. It has a hole to go into, a door to go into. You put the pots in, then it has a door on the other side where they take them out. So it comes in with a dry glaze, comes out beautiful. But every time you do it, every 7 days or so, they have to brick it back up. They leave one little hole so they can pull the brick out, shove wood all the time in every little chamber. It's so cool to watch. I've done this many times, but I just look through that hole. You actually see the pieces on fire, and you can kind of watch it as it kind of goes from a dirt color to some of the glaze colors. It's fascinating to see, but it's pretty cool. It stays in that kiln for about 7 days, and it still gets up to about 2,300 degrees Fahrenheit. Wow. Amazing how they make that happen. And then there's the gas kilns. It's kind of the modern, where we can really manipulate temperature. It gets to this temperature this long and so forth, but it still goes up to the same thing, but takes about 2 days. But boy, when you open that door or when you break those bricks out and you see what this piece turned into that, it's like Christmas morning for me, because you can have the idea, you can have the idea in your head and what you think, but then you don't really know on a new piece what it's going to look like. Even you can take that piece and put it in this gunmetal color here, or you could do it on another color and it runs different ways. You know, it reacts to different relief work things. You just don't know exactly what it's going to look like until you open it up. It's just like, and it's never more beautiful than the time it comes out of that kiln, when that fire just came off of it.
So when it comes out of the kiln, you then have to do, there's some final finishing touches, whether it's, polishing it,
We do, yeah, we do. We want to make sure, because inside that kiln you may have where the glaze is running down the side. It may create little puddles, puddles inside, but I mean, it becomes rocks and stuff on the outside of the pot. So we sand it all down. We just make sure all the imperfections are gone. And at that point in time, it becomes the packing,
Sure.
Which is, again, what we do is we have fortunate enough to have a shoe company close by, does all the soles for the different tennis shoes around the world, or running shoes. And we actually are able to recycle the excess material that's left over, and we use that for our packing. So we at least reuse it one more time. And what's so cool is, now I will tell you, when I first started in this business, breakage was a difficult thing to see where it comes from to where it ends up on a ship, on the ocean, back in another transfer truck and across the country and so forth. There's a lot of compression on those pieces. But our damage now is down to like less than 1%. So
wow.
that packing does material that works really well.
There are so many different steps that go into making these truly works of art.
Yeah.
And it really gives me a deep appreciation for containers that are made well. It's an investment in the future of your garden. These are things that can be passed down for generations. Buying containers of quality really, really does make a difference. And I really appreciate you giving us the behind-the-scenes perspective from the design process all the way through the finished product. It's been fascinating. Thank you so much.
My privilege. Thank you all for coming.
Each week we travel the country north to south, east to west, visiting some of the most exciting gardens, as well as talking to industry horticulturalists about design principles, new plants, and also how you can be most successful with your home gardens. We also love answering your gardening questions, so visit us on the web at GardenSMART.com.
These moments of beauty and relaxation are brought to you by Proven Winners Flowering Shrubs, where every plant is performance tested, leaving you free to just enjoy. Find our award-winning shrubs at your local garden center.
Bring the outdoors into your everyday life. Bass Pro Shops can outfit all your adventures, even those in your backyard. Bass Pro Shops, your adventure starts here.
DRAM has been providing gardeners with professional equipment for over 75 years. DRAM products feature 9 water patterns and are designed to nurture your plants with a shower of rain. DRAM for lawn and garden, available at garden centers near you.
You have to rely on your gear. The way it feels, the way it does exactly what you need it to do. The F-Pace, how Jaguar makes it SUV.
The marriage of great design and superior materials yields a container that will last for generations. And today we've taken a look at every step in the process. If you have questions about anything you've seen, visit us on the web at GardenSMART.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram. And remember, even if you're a master gardener, there's always more to learn. So join us next week for more great gardening tips and ideas as we garden smart.